Okay, we're on? All right, I'm gonna drink some coffee to start this. Hello, everybody. I'm actually going to finally get started on what I've been promising for so long. And I want to explain how we're going to go about doing this. This is basically, we're going to study the orally transmitted teachings. Okay, this has been translated by Burton Watson. So this isn't a publication that was created by the Soka Gakkai to conform to the Soka Gakkai or anything else. We're also going to be utilizing this book, which is another written by Burton Watson, or translated by Burton Watson. This is the Threefold Lotus Sutra, which includes the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra, which is, all this is covered in the Gosho. So these, or pardon me, in the OTT. And its official title is The Record of the Orally Transmitted Teachings. If I shorten that to OTT, I want you to understand that I'm specifically talking about Nikko, N-I-K-K-O's perception and understanding of the Daishonin's instruction and teaching at the end of his life, or in those last years of his life when all of these lectures in Minobu occurred. This isn't the kind of thing that I will do if I think that it's just going to be viewed by people that are curious, because there's no reason to try and just be curious about the orally transmitted teachings. It's so deep. First of all, what is the orally transmitted teachings? It's the perception of Nichiren of the Buddhism of sowing in the latter day of the law, based on his perspective of writings that preceded his epiphany, that the essence that was being referred to without being named over and over again in the Lotus Sutra was Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. And in giving it the name Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, he unleashed an entire process and power that has been available to others outside of himself. And so, you know, if you don't consider yourself a disciple of Nichiren Daishonin, you shouldn't watch this. If you're only curious, you shouldn't watch this. I'm only doing this because I know there's one person, Rekha Rajani, who sincerely and deeply wants me to do this. And therefore, I can feel her calling me all the way from India. I have from the moment, the first time she asked me, because I'm going into no man's land here by doing this. No one that I'm aware of has ever had the audacity to approach this. And so what you have to understand is, right up front, even President Ikeda will now acknowledge, as I read to you the foreword on this, which, again, the introduction, we had, you know, I talked about this in the videos called The Life of Nichiren Daishonin. I was actually reading from the orally transmitted teaching. That's where what I read came from. And I alluded to this and then kind of said it's going to go underground, because once again, we have around close to going on 750 subscribers to this channel, and what we're doing here, there's probably about 100 of you, maybe 150 of you that are hardcore. I can tell how fast you read you watch the videos, you're thirsting for a more clear understanding. And so do understand that anybody that reads the OTT has to interpret what they get out of it, okay? Because this is the Daishonin's interpretation. It's from his mind, okay? So you can struggle with, what's that mean? Or how's he know that? All you want to, and that's just bullshit. It's just not going in the direction you need to be in if you're really going to perceive the message here, which is that you're the Buddha already, exactly as you are. As you're hearing my words right now, you're already the Buddha, okay? And all of this all fits together. So what we're going to be studying, we're not trying to understand the Lotus Sutra, okay? We're bodhisattvas of the earth. We really are, you know, our leader is Bodhisattva Jogyo. And so subsequently, superior practices is really what Nichiren always kind of alluded to. He was a personification of. We're all personifications of Jogyo, okay? We're bodhisattvas of the earth. We are a little bit different than others in that the people that I'm reading to now definitely didn't hear about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo for the first time in this lifetime. Okay, because if you've been able to continue to practice and go through the bullshit of succeeding in the very difficult process of achieving human revolution, or you're in that process now and because it doesn't become, achieving anything doesn't make it, everything stop and life is rosy and you have no more problems. Again, we have the same lives as Nichiren had, okay? Nichiren was an ordinary human being just like us. There's no difference between his life and our life. As a matter of fact, there's a synergy between the two of them in that the aspect of his life, which is the 10th world, is what has been revealed and personified by his life in a fashion that we can bring it forth, bring it out of a dormant state in our life and achieve Buddhahood in our present form. But you have to believe in his teachings. You have to have faith in his teachings. So we're not studying the Lotus Sutra. We're going to use it as a reference. Okay, we're going to actually do what we do in Gongyo, which is to borrow and use and borrow and refute. Okay, so understand that that's where the Daishonin is going to be coming from. He's not going to be going, and he's going to say Shakyamuni Buddha at points in time. Might confuse you because he's going to allude to Shakyamuni Buddha being some Buddha greater than him as he's writing this. But you have to also understand that the concept of he himself being the eternal Buddha by virtue of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. I mean, when this is written, they're all sitting around a campfire in the middle of nowhere in a mountain. How can he claim this is going to spread, even though he does? He says he's going to spread out throughout Jampadvipa, which is the whole world. Who could imagine as they're sitting around a campfire and he's expounding all this stuff that could actually happen? But in reality, thanks to the Soka Gakkai, everything Nichiren Daishonin predicted has occurred. And all of us that embrace his teachings need to kind of understand at least a little bit about what the message is here in order to get the most out of our practice and also to have a guidance of understanding of our true state, our true nature, our true identity as we try to encourage other people. Because once again, the benefits are the expedient means. They're the firewood that you burn on the way to attaining Buddhahood. This is all about realizing your true identity, therefore your association with the original teacher, okay? And to understand Nichiren's true identity as such, okay? That's all revealed here, okay? I couldn't know what I really know about Buddhism in the absence of this having been translated and published. And that's what, again, I say. So, reverently, thank you to Mr. Ikeda for, getting the Gakkai to the point that they could have the kinds of respect and standing in the world community to be able to, attract somebody like this. This guy worked for Columbia. I'm going to get up because I got one thing here. Where is it? I must have it upstairs. I was taking a look at it to try. Burton Watson did another translation of the Lotus Sutra, but it didn't include the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra and the, the Encouragements of Bodhisattva Universal, that's the Universal Worthy Sutra. So if you've got the Universal Worthy Sutra at the end, you've got the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra at the beginning, and the Lotus Sutra itself is in between. But once again, Mr. Watson had done that for Columbia University Press, and for a while we had access to that in the Kaikons because it was at least an English language translation of that text, which is not a Japanese text. The Lotus Sutra is, Sanskrit and Chinese, kind of at this point in time. There are different translations, but again, it comes from the Sanskrit being translated by Kumarajiva into Mandarin And then Mr. Watson is an expert in linguistics on all those kinds of languages, world renowned, probably the top guy in the world. He took this project on. So be understanding that I'm only going to be expressing to you my understanding of what this is saying. I'm not lecturing on the orally transmitted teachings. I'm not qualified to. I don't pretend to be qualified to be able to do that. But I can share with you understanding that I have come by myself from my own Daimoku, from my own Buddha nature, that sure works for me, and it's all predicated on the things that my mentors have taught me as well. My wife has just gone for me too, from across from me here at the table. So, please do understand that. I don't want this to get into anybody's head as being something that I'm forcing down your throat. This is very elective, and again, it's kind of selective, because I'm asking anybody that doesn't really qualify in the manner that I just talked about with doubt-free faith, for instance. This is Nichiren Daishonin talking about shit that you don't know anything about. Okay, so anybody that wants to oppose his perspective is a moron, as far as I'm concerned, because you're not qualified, no matter who you are. Okay, so please keep an open mind to how this can be perceived, and always when you have questions about things that you read that don't seem to quite make sense, the best place to find the answer to those questions is in front of the Butsunan chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon. I've never had a question like that I've asked of the universe to perceive correctly, or to perceive in a manner that satisfies me that hasn't absolutely occurred. So it's really all about your seeking spirit, and because of that, the ability to read this and understand it requires a fairly decent amount of understanding of everything that's preceded in regard to Tentai and Dengyo and Myolo and the Daishonin's Gosho and that sort of thing. So I'm going to have to go back just to make sure that I'm bringing everybody along. I can't assume everybody knows everything that's in the dictionary, so they correctly understand what the Lotus Sutra is actually saying, and then they understand correctly what Nichiren Daishonin is actually saying. And in reality, as far as the Lotus Sutra itself is concerned, the Daishonin goes through and he makes reference to specific passages in the 28 chapters as he goes through his lecture on the record of the orally transmitted teachings. And then he qualifies all 28 chapters are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and he creates this summation and understanding. As we go through this, and he's, saying all this really deep stuff, we're going to keep these much shorter than I normally go at a time. I don't even know how long have I been going already. 15 minutes? Okay, so the bottom line is we're going to try and keep these to about a half hour so that you have an easier capability of going back and checking reference points in terms of what's being said. But I'm going to be reading a lot of dictionary definitions on the front end before we even start getting into the Lotus Sutra itself. One of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to speed read and understand the Lotus Sutra without actually having to read the sutra, because if you don't have the understanding of it on the front end, without you knowing what's coming next and what's coming next and what's coming next, it would be very difficult to read it in a way that you're able to ponder and ascertain what is that saying. Okay? And the way we read the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law is from the perspective of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so don't take to heart the literal words of anything that this says. It's making reference to the future, and that reference to the future is what is contained here. Okay, and don't confuse expedient means with the truth. Okay, no disrespect to, Shakyamuni, but this is the latter day of the law. Okay, so with that said, I want to also now kind of tell a little bit of my story. This is This is going to be on the channel that you obviously are viewing it on. It's not on George's channel. This is on my channel because I'm going way out on a limb. I don't want to expose him to any liability. Because again, President Keita has yet to expound anything on this, and I don't know what makes me think I can do it, but again, Rekha has asked me, and so for that reason, I call this the Rajani Project. Her name's Rekha Rajani. I want it to be a little bit obscure because I don't want to lead curiosity seekers to what we're doing here. So this is just going to be RP2 is what the title of this video is going to be, and as I do them, there'll be RP3, RP4, RP5. You'll find them here on this channel, which is where it's my channel. So with that in mind, let me just say again why I'm feeling that I should do this. Okay. All right. I have several weird mystic things. I've got billions of them, but I'm going to talk about 4 circumstances that pertain specifically to what we're talking about now, and share them with you. These were really occurrences that took place with you. I've already shared in the Earthly Desires Equal Enlightenment video about the great Grunyan benefit that really launched my faith and my association with the Soka Gakkai. And I've always talked many times about Mr. Matsuoka, Tony Matsuoka, and Mr. Terosaki. And what I want to tell you now is both of them kind of predicted what's happening right now. I used to have a lot of people say, for whatever reason, it used to be almost something that was the throwaway line back in the old days, is, oh, someday you're going to be a great leader for Kosen Rufu. And I say it kind of a little accent because it was always the Japanese people that were talking that way. And so I would hear that often about how I was going to be a great leader for Kosen Rufu, okay? And it's like, why? Because I know a lot of stuff Mr. Matsuoka gave it. I've done my best to study. I do study. I chant a lot of Daimoku about understanding these things. At any rate, life went on, and my practice really got kind of twisted up in the success that occurred in my life as a result of my faith in my practice. Okay, I zoomed up the social strata, the financial strata, all that kind of crap, and I didn't have any background to allow me to understand what I was now into, and I was just total gross benefit, bury Tom in benefit, so he can never regret anything in the future. So that was going on, and so I was very kind of not lost, but I was becoming more and more estranged from the organization, because more and more the organization wasn't the same kind of Japanese leaders that I'd been raised by and that I respected, and that they seemed to respect me. So there was a convention in New York called the New York Convention, and I did a bunch of tap dancing down the Avenue of the Americas, or the Avenue of the Stars, whatever. We also did something at the baseball stadium, I guess it's Met Stadium, and at Louis Armstrong Stadium is where the actual convention was held. So at any rate, I was living in Chicago at the time. Somehow I had gotten involved with I can't even remember, Menon. So that I was doing not only the tap dancing, I was also doing the on-stage performance deal. It was called Tarantella Dance. And I traveled so much back then. I wasn't like everybody else who was relatively local. I mean, I had like an 8-state area that I was actually working. And so I couldn't hit all the practices and be there for all of everything. And of course, I caught a lot of attitude at that point in time about lack of faith, this and that, where are your priorities? And so it was part of the process of how I kind of drifted a little bit. But something very strange happened at that event. We had gone at a point in time where we had some free time before the show was going to go on. We were all doing our practicing for that. We had practiced and everybody relaxed, and everybody fell asleep. It's very weird. Everybody fell asleep. And then I was suddenly awakened by somebody saying, there's some people over here looking for you. And I jumped up and I ran over, and I hadn't seen Mr. Matsuoka for many years at that point in time. And it was Mr. Matsuoka. He was being propped up on each side by two rather attractive young women's division. And he goes, Tom, it's you. It is you. And I said, hi, yeah, it's me. I might have, no, it's you. And I'm going like, it's me, what do you mean? He goes, he just laughed and he starts saying, oh, well, how did I never know this? Why didn't I know this? I should have understood, I should have known, it's you. He said, then he told me, you've got this big mission and you can never go Titan, and I can't really talk about all the things he said or I'll start crying. And at any rate, it was very confusing because my life at that moment certainly didn't reflect any of that. And then at a later point, again, while in Chicago, this was in Mr. Osaki was still there before he had gone to Los Angeles. And they'd done a reorganization of my local chapter or whatever. And again, Mr. Osaki respected how much I knew, but no, this is what I refer back to the Christian Buddhism that occurred once they started putting non-Japanese into leadership positions, because they got way off the reservation as it relates to anything I can find in the Gosho about conduct and necessity of certain abstinations, okay? And so the bottom line was that, I got passed over and was basically made a member again, and it was very disillusioning because suddenly my honcho didn't even know as much as my district chief didn't know as much as I knew, all this stuff. And I was crying at Mr. Osaki's desk, and as I was crying, I was, the organization doesn't trust me anymore, yada yada yada. And he just looked at me and he threw his hands back as he leaned back and he laughed and he said, Tom, if they got their hands on you right now, they'd kill you. No, don't worry about any of this. You're the kind of guy. You go out there and you do your business, you do your thing, you just do what you do, Tom. And then in 30 years, people will be anxious to hear what you have to say. You have a great mission for Kosa Rufu. Now, here's again somebody saying, you're gonna help others, when that's really what I want more than anything else. But I've got responsibilities. I'm living life in the fast lane. It's very difficult to separate myself from that, to be like a Gakkai guy 7 days a week, because I'm not even in town. And so that occurred, and then pardon me. Then that Lotus Sutra came out in around 1990. That would have all been in the 80s. And then that Lotus Sutra translation came out from Burden Watson about somewhere right around 1990. And I immediately bought it, and I looked in the summary of what the chapters and the content was, and what would be interesting to read. I mean, the first thing I saw was Teacher of the Law, which I think is chapter 10, if I'm not mistaken. And I went, oh God, that's what I got to know about. I go there, and what I read in that chapter, I don't know if I was hallucinating, I don't even remember. All I know is I read that chapter and it freaked me out, because it sounded, in my heart, it sounded like it was talking about me. And that was something that I couldn't, it was like, no, I'm super flawed, folks, so it can't be me. But everything that it was talking about, the teacher, it was exactly the conviction and the feeling and the desire that I had to respond to my master, Nichiren. And so life goes on. I'm at another point where I'm at a complete meltdown. This is a relationship issue, and I decide I'm going to just chant until I resolve it. So I went into this I could call it a samadhi, because I chanted like 5, 6, 7 hours a day, every day for around 5, 6 days. And every day I thought I'd got it. And then as soon as I felt like I understood, I realized I didn't understand. There was more to try to understand. So this was something I was constantly, it was like a 5-step thing going on, where every day the place that I went to while I chanted got deeper and deeper and deeper. And finally, then suddenly I was chanting Daimoku, and what started going through my head was like a greatest hits of all these impossible mystic things that had occurred from me chanting. And I have this weird thing where this voice comes into my head and I hear someone talking to me. And that sounds like James Earl Jones. It's a very deep voice. It's not my voice. But it's always kind of like helped me at crucial moments when I really didn't know what to think. The voice said clearly what I should think, and I bought in, and it's always worked. So, at any rate, this time as I was thinking about all these incredible, mystic, impossible benefits that had occurred in my life that I had chanted for, and they happened. And again, at this point in time, I still chanted to the Gohonzon in the Butsudan. Okay, I had not become awakened to the real Gohonzon yet, which allowed me to become who I wanted to become. All that other time, I got plenty of benefit, but I still couldn't become who I wanted to become. I could be lots of other things, some of them very successfully, but I couldn't become who I wanted to become. And so suddenly this voice said to me, it was again, I get laughed at a lot. It was a very hearty, deep laugh. And it was just like, Tom, who do you think did all this? And the epiphany came that it actually was me that had created all of these impossible, powerful, incredible things that I had actually experienced with my own life, and that it wasn't from anybody but me. And that was, again, just like with the Teacher of the Law chapter, that freaked me out. Just like I never went back to the Lotus Sutra again after I read the Teacher of the Law chapter back there in 1990 when that occurred. It happened in Texas. That also left me very messed up for a while, because now if it's not Nichiren, the Gohonzon, outside of me in the Butsudan, and it really is me, then how could that be? How could that be? That really caused me a big, huge time when I had to pause to figure out what the hell, how I'm hallucinating now, or am I understanding what is naturally occurring in my mind? And so, then what happened is ultimately the thing that had kept me from being able to be who I wanted to be was I was kind of like forced into this direction at a very early age of success, of career, of building companies. I was, I had a high school education, so I couldn't get anybody hired. I had to make my own companies. I made multi-million-dollar companies. It was all on the power of the Gohonzon. And I would tell everybody that. And I got lots and lots and lots of benefits. But I still didn't become who I wanted to be. Ultimately, that did occur. Everything fell apart. I had no choice but to start over from scratch again. And by that point in time, that was the post-split with Soka Gakkai and Nichiren Shoshu, and the influence of NSIC and the influence of the Nichiren Shoshu priests being the one that were actually creating the written doctrine that we could study and read and had access to. Did the priests ever decide that we should see this and make? No, they said this was just for them. Okay, this was really for exclusive people, because you really do need to have faith to understand this correctly. But I mean, was there an English translation existing in the world? I mean, besides the one that Columbia, he had done, Mr. Watson had done with Columbia? No. So nothing that tied everything together. So President Ikeda put all that together starting around in 1995. That's why I don't read from the Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra series, because it's too old now. It's being revised. It's not contemporary. It's not what we should be studying to perceive and understanding the truth. It's why I get on the case of these people about the Buddha in daily life. That's so old. I mean, that's Nietzsche and Shoshu doctrine to some degree, really. So what I've been trying to carry out and bring out is the stuff that you can all find. It's open source. It's provided to anybody that wants to read it. You can find all the content of this, all the content of this, and all the content of this on www.nietzscheanlibrary.org, and you can read right along as we go through this. We're going to go through this bit by bit by bit as I see fit. And so, you're just going to get little sessions, 1, 2, 3. Well, we've already done 1. This is 2. It will only be abbreviated as RP2, and I'll continue to do them as often as I possibly can. Thanks.